Alright folks, in this video we're going to be taking a look at the Tegra iPlay. So the Tegra iPlay is a 7-inch Android gaming console made by a company called Montremax. And Montremax is a Chinese company that makes telecom devices and some Android tablets, etc. So the iPlay is a purely Chinese device. Everything about this device when it comes to tech support is in Chinese. The ROM is in Chinese. The official forms are in Chinese. So if you're applying to get into this device, you probably have to know a bit of Chinese. I don't, but I was lucky enough to get a lot of help from the Dingoinity forums, which I will link below. So what is the Tegra iPlay 7? The Tegra iPlay 7 is an Android game console with the Tegra 4 SoC in it. And that's something that makes it different from a lot of other console devices. Let me get the Q9 here. Something similar to the Q9. The difference between the Tegra iPlay 7 and, as I said, the other Chinese devices is that they usually use a Rockchip or MediaTek chipset, but the Tegra iPlay is the first Chinese device to use a rather mainstream gaming SoC. First thing I noticed was how light it is compared to the GPD-Q9. Keep in mind, GPD-Q9, which you can check out my review, I had a lot of gripes with it, and one of the main gripes was the ergonomics and holding it and how uncomfortable it was. Luckily, the iPlay does not have this issue. It has a very good curved back over here. It gives you a really good grip, and these are rubber. This is like rubbery material, and it really gives you a solid grip. And it does help that it's very light, much lighter than the Q9. At least it feels light. I'm not sure if it really is light, but it definitely feels lighter, and it's quite a bit thinner as well. You can't tell it from this video, but it is much thinner than the rather chunky GPD Q9. So what's special about the Tegra iPlay? Well, when I first got it, what I was really impressed by is the whole build quality. I mean, this is a very solidly built device. It uses some kind of a plastic at the back, and the rubber grips, the sticks, everything is just built very solidly. You know, there's nothing flaky or loose about it, which a lot of Chinese devices tend to have. But then again, this is a very expensive device. So let's take an outer look at this device. So you have R1, R2. This might look like one button, but no, there are actually two buttons. This is a R1 and an R2, L1, L2, and you have your volume buttons on the top, and you have a power button. You also have your headphone jack, your USB power jack, and those are pretty much it for the standard ports. You also have a SD card slot. This comes with 16 GB built-in memory, and it's expandable with the SD card slot. So on the upper layer, this uses the standard HID control setup. This is a HID controller and does support most, I would say 90% of the games that support HID controls. So it has your standard face buttons. These buttons are pretty good, but they are kind of shaped like a D-pad, a split D-pad, which I don't really like. I wish they were more circular, but you know, it really doesn't hinder things much. You can get used to it. It has an analog stick, not a nub, which is pretty good. I would say it's closer to a PS Vita analog stick than you know, Xbox 360 controller or normal console stick. So it's closer to that. It does also click, so that means you do have R3 and L3. You have your home button, which is a Montremax icon, and you have your D-pad. Now, if you've seen my other reviews, you know I'm very picky about D-pads. This D-pad in general is good. It's a one-piece D-pad, but sometimes it's a little too sensitive. So if you push it too hard, you'll get multiple clicks. So you'll get down and left, right, all coming down at the same time if you push it too hard. But this is not much of an hindrance. You can get used to it. A clicky kind of, you know, it has a clicky tactile feedback to it. So it's pretty good. And I think otherwise, the back portion doesn't really have much, except the speakers are located over here. You see these two wedges over here. This is where the speakers are, and for the most part they're okay. I'd say they're just, you know, around about average. They're not great, not as good as the Shield or HTC or whatever, but they do the job. The volume can be a little bit low at times, but that can be modded. As for the screen, So this uses an IPS display, and it's a very good IPS display. The colors do pop. I'm using black purposefully so that you can see the contrast between white and red. So the colors really pop. This is a 1080p screen, and the Android version on this is 4.4.2, which is KitKat. There you go, that's the Android version on this. I don't know if this is going to be updated to Lollipop or whatever, because support for this device is very limited, and it was very hard to get this device running. So now let me get into that part, like setting up this device. So when I got this device, this was all completely in Chinese. I mean, everything. So what I had to do is head over to the forums and find the English ROM, which you can find it in the forums, and I had to download it. Updating it also was a bit of a process. There's a step-by-step guide to it on the forum, so you can do that. And once you get that ROM done, it installs Google Play. The standard version does not come with the Play Store, so you need to use the ROM to get the Play Store, or you can use a different modification. I have all the information on the website. Some other features. So this runs at about 1.8 gigahertz. The Shield Portable runs at 1.9 gigahertz, so there's a bit of a difference. And the performance, otherwise, it's pretty comparable. They're pretty much the same. I have posted benchmarks on the website. And the other thing, what's interesting is, I originally thought that this does not support 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, but it does support 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, which is pretty cool. So obviously they had game streaming in mind. And getting back into the software of this device, another gripe I have is the standard gamepad mapper is an older version of the Nvidia gamepad mapper, and this is a problem because the right stick cannot be used as a look stick. You know, if you hold RS, you should be able to get a function called FPS mode. In FPS mode, basically you can look up, down, left, right with your stick, but unfortunately this mapper doesn't have it, so it's not much of an issue. You can use Tin Core for it. So let's get into performance. I have a bunch of games here, so let's run an arcade game first, because since we're going to be using this for emulators mostly, and I'm going to be running Guardians, which is an arcade game. It'll give you a good idea of how this device performs. One thing I had forgotten, the screen on this is a 54 hertz display, and that can be an hindrance to certain games, not all games. Older games are usually okay, but if you're using something like PPSSP, some games in PPSSP or the PlayStation Portable, you might need to use frame skip to get, you know, relatively good performance. So the keys are automatically mapped. I'm using the standard Happy Chick emulator to run this arcade game. And you can see the colors really do pop. I mean, the diagonals work fine. As you can see, I'm moving diagonally. Alright, so as you can see, it works fine. The 54 hertz screen does not really make the game any slower in most cases, and it's running full speed here. So let's back out of this and go into a Dreamcast game. So for Dreamcast, I'm going to be playing Charge and Blast. So this is Charge and Blast, running on the Recast emulator, which is a Dreamcast emulator. a pretty fun game. I wish I had played this before. So there we go, that's Dreamcast. Now let's get into the PlayStation Portable, and for this I'm going to be demoing Soul Calibur, which is a fighting game. So as you can see, it runs pretty smooth. There's not much of an issue on this with the 54 hertz screen, but if you disable frame skip, I'm running auto frame skip over here, so let's see what happens when you disable frame skip. I'm also going to turn on the speed counter. So when you disable frame skip, it really massively lowers the speed of the game. I'm not saying FPS. This does not lower the frame rate. It lowers the speed because it's having some sort of a conflict with the 54 hertz screen. However, if you just turn on frame skip to 1 and auto mode, keep in mind, if you're going to use frame skip 1 and auto mode, you have to have your multi-threading on, otherwise it will be very choppy. Multi-threading kind of balances the whole frame skip aspect out. So there we go, now it's running fine. It's running at almost 100%. It is 100% pretty much, and it's quite smooth. It's not perfectly smooth, but it is quite smooth. It's playable completely. So there we go, that's Soul Calibur running on the Tegra iPlay 7. Okay, so what else did I want to talk about? Okay, so as you can see, this has a task switcher button and it has a back button. Now when you're going to game stream, what happens is you don't have a start button. You do have the back button, but you don't have the menu or start button. To fix that, you can go into your key layout file, and in the key layout file there's a USB controller file, and what you can do is you can make this into the menu button. Once you make this into the menu button, it works completely as a start button and it does not have any issues. And you can switch the minus key into a gamepad key, so when you hold it, it brings out the gamepad, or it also becomes a task switcher. So it's pretty easy to do. If somebody wants details about that, they can go into the Dingoinity forums or the XDA forums, or you can just ask me and I'll try to help you out. So let's take a look at a bit of game streaming. So this is The Witcher 3. I'm running it via the Moonlight game streaming app. So The Witcher 3 runs pretty much, it streams fine. It's streaming from my laptop, and as you can see, the performance is quite smooth. There's no jitter or lag because it's using the 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi network, and the analog sticks work very well. There you go, see, you can have slight movement or you can have fast movement, slight, fast. And the L3, R3, they all works completely fine. If I tap twice, I can call my horse, and if I hold A, I can run. So I really don't have any issues with game streaming, and in many ways this feels much better than the Q9, which has this, which is complete crap, and I don't think anyone should buy something like this. So this is much better. This is good because you can actually control the game, you can move properly, you can play FPS games, and I would say this really makes this one of the most interesting 7-inch devices. Or I can't say it's the best 7-inch device because mainly because of the language barrier, you know, because everything is in Chinese. It's very hard to get support. The gamepad mapper is not good. You can use tin core, of course, but come on, a standard gamepad mapper, you know, should support FPS mode. But other than that, the device is pretty good. A beautiful screen, solid keys, solid build, you know, good. Feels good ergonomically, it feels good, holding it feels good. It's not very weighty, so I would say this device is a very good balance. I wouldn't say this is very portable because the sticks can get damaged if you put it the wrong way, but for the most part it's pretty good, pretty solid. I have to apologize that this review took so long to do because there were just so many issues I had to fix with this device, and one of the other issues that I had was that the standby time is not that good. It keeps draining out the battery. Keep in mind the battery is a 6000 mAh battery, which is really good. You can get up to 4 hours of gameplay, 4 to even 5 hours depending on what you're doing. But when you turn it off and it's on standby, the power keeps draining, and that is mainly a firmware issue which may or may not be fixed. What I am doing right now is I'm using set CPU. So what set CPU does is it profiles my device. It profiles whichever app I'm using. So if I'm using the launcher, it'll reduce the frequency to 800 megahertz, and you know, everything runs fine. I should have shown you a native Android game, which I will do now, and I'm just going to continue the game just to give you an idea what a standard Android game feels like on this device. Keep in mind, Conduit HD is a bit old, but it's still graphically intensive enough for the Tegra 4, and I'm running everything at max setting, so you can see there's no lag at all. So that's Conduit HD, and as you can see, it runs fine. The one thing I haven't tested is the PlayStation 4 remote play, and I'm pretty sure it works fine. Since it works fine on the Shield Portable and they use the same Tegra 4 chipset, it should be fine. So what do I think about this device overall? I think it's a good device. It's very good for a 7-inch device. I think this is one of the best 7-inch devices I've used, but it is so close to being perfect, yet it's not there, mainly because the software really holds it back, and that's a shame. I wish that, you know, developers had taken more notice of this device, but I think the expense, or how expensive this device is, makes it a barrier for most developers, and they probably won't even get it, which is pretty sad. It had a lot of potential. Will there be a Tegra iPlay 2? There is a possibility, maybe. I don't know how well the iPlay did. Probably not well, because it's almost $300. So it's sad, you know. I'm glad that I got it. It's definitely worth the money for me, even though this is a Tegra 4 device and it's quite a bit older now. It's still a really powerful emulation device and can play a lot of Android games fine. Game streaming works really well, so there's a lot of plus to this device. The analog sticks are good, you know, they don't have any dead zone issues, which a lot of mainstream devices also surprisingly have. On the minus, well, the speakers are pretty, you know, mediocre at best. They're not great. I think they could have done better. The firmware is buggy. It has power drain issues at times. And it's a real pain to get everything just right the way you want it. So again, as a warning, this is not a mainstream device. This is definitely something an enthusiast would enjoy. Somebody like me who likes tweaking and tinkering with stuff, you know, we kind of enjoy this kind of stuff, so it's fine for us. We can make it into a good device for us because the basics are very good. The software needs tweaking. So if you're somebody who's an enthusiast, I would say you'd probably find this device interesting. But if you are just a casual mainstream gamer who would love to have a good device that game streams and does everything and is not something like the Nvidia Shield, this is not for you. You should definitely not get this because you have to put a lot of effort and work into it. You have to know how to flash a ROM. You'd have to know how to edit key layouts. You'd have to know how to set up profiles with set CPU. So you'd have to have a lot of knowledge. You know, you have to know what you're doing. So this is an enthusiast device and I like it. Is it going to be my daily use gaming device? So far I'm still switching between this and my Shield tablet, especially because the BFG edition for the Shield tablet just came out, the Doom 3. So let's see, you know, I think maybe this would replace my Shield tablet as my go-to 7-inch gaming device, because it does everything. PS4 remote play, game streaming remote play, Android games, emulators, everything works fine. A gripe I forgot to mention, oh, I did mention but I have to repeat, the 54Hz screen is a letdown. This can be actually fixed. Unfortunately, we don't have devs who are going to be getting into it, even though it's an open SDK. But that's unfortunate. So a device that is so close to being perfect, being the perfect 7-inch device, yet it just doesn't get there. Well, I hope you like this video. If you have any questions or comments or anything, just post them down there and I'll try my best to answer them. So if you like the video, go ahead and like it. If you dislike it, go ahead and dislike it. But as always, thank you for watching.